Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us to conclude the all candidates meeting and provide your final comments. Unfortunately, it was a few individuals caused us to shut down early yesterday, so I do appreciate you taking the extra time today. There was a question you were just beginning to answer when we closed, so I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to provide your response, and once we've finished that, then we will move on to, somebody's got some wind or something in the background. Then we will move on to giving you an opportunity to provide some closing comments. So the question was, COVID-19 has shown us the faults in a globalized food system, especially in the north where shelves were almost empty. How will you support farmers trying to produce in a challenging northern climate? Over the pandemic, grain farmers were competing with oil and gas industry for use of the railways to move goods. How will you improve local food infrastructure? Is this a priority for your party? And let's start with Phil.
And hello, here we go. COVID-19 did show empty shelves in the toilet paper aisle. And mysteriously, it looks like this computer is frozen, which is not good.
Oh, we're hearing you fine.
Okay, good. Also, jalapeno Doritos were hard to find in Prince George. You couldn't find them anywhere. And I don't know if there's a link to those two things. I know in Fort St. John, most of the shelves were full with certain things being hard to find or not there, especially toilet paper. I think that was consistent throughout. A strange coincidence nonetheless. I would like to point out for the next part of that question that it asks about farmers getting their produce to market. Trains were hauling bitumen. Farmers cannot access rail because the Liberal Party and the NDP canceled pipelines.
Oh, now we've lost you, Phil. Okay, I don't know if Phil can hear me, but let's move on. We'll come back and give you.
Did you? Oh.
Yeah, we totally lost you there, Phil.
Oh, darn. What does this mean? Should I start over?
Sure.
You had said Jagmeet and then it stopped.
Okay. Jagmeet Singh declared that we do not need pipelines anymore in Canada. The problem with this is we actually do. If our rail is going to be plugged up hauling bitumen over land so that farmers can't access the rail to get their product to market, this is a huge problem. And I know a little bit about farming. I know some friends who are actively, running cattle operations right now. And if you look at a cow in their field, you will see 1, 2, 3, and in some cases 4 tags in their ear, and that's just one animal. Those are GPS tracking devices. They may be being monitored by the lender because they're protecting their assets. They may be monitored by Ag Canada. They may be monitored by branches of the government that track things like mad cow disease, but they real time track the cattle exactly where they are and how they're moving. They can even tell if the animal is moving in an unusual way that might indicate that it's not healthy. A lot of people aren't aware of this. Did you know that a farmer cannot butcher his own beef unless it's only for his own use? They have to get a certified butcher in or get their meat to a certified butcher who then does the butchering, and that's the only way they can sell their meat's produce. And it doesn't matter if you're in organic farming, if you are running a winery, if you're running a microbrewery. It only takes one inspector to put your business out of business. The red tape in Canada is terrible. People who are in farming or at any level of business, be it organic farming, you name it, are saddled with so much red tape that they are like Egyptian mummies. They're that wrapped up. It's a very unfortunate situation. And this is something that I think Canadians could come together on and admit that interprovincial restrictions and limitations, for example, with some alcohol products, could wind you up with a serious expensive fine, or possibly in some cases prison, depending on how much you have on you. It's ridiculous. And these things need to change. We need pipelines to get our bitumen to market. But right now, farmers are having no problem accessing rail because the current government has absolutely killed oil and gas in Alberta. They're really hurting there. People are out of work and nothing's moving. So farmers can access rail, no problem. And so you can see the problems with this. Now, as I was saying, it only takes one inspector to kill your business, no matter what it is. And everything is overregulated. If you're a law-abiding gun owner, same thing, but that's another topic. Now, there's 4 million cows in Canada. A lot of people don't know that. 40 million, sorry, there's a cow registry. Yeah, and that's a fairly consistent number. Well, I learned that as of 2000. It may have increased a bit since the population of Canada went up. But that is the baseline number approximately, because, you know, you have cows birthing cows for every year, and, you know, for meat and for milk. And anyways, I think it's important to point out that the PPC wanted to attack Canadian dairy. They likened Canadian dairy to a cartel. They called it the dairy cartel, which sounds a lot like they're trying to describe the Mexican drug cartel. Well, dairy cartel is crazy. Dairy farmers are people who get up at the crack of dawn and work hard all day. And I've heard they make pretty good money in that industry, but for the level of effort that they put into their industry, I commend them completely. And if anyone thinks that once you've killed Canadian dairy, that American dairy is going to be more affordable or as good a quality, you're seriously mistaken. So government policies, or even individual party policies, can become very wrong-headed. And this is why we need direct democracy with the input of many informed people. 2 heads is better than one, and any one person in control of everything certainly makes a huge mess of everything, given our current situation in Canada. And so I, again, am advocating in favor of the party that I run with. Direct democracy is an idea whose time may have come. And maybe all Canadians could come together in agreement with that. And it's something that should at least be tried and considered, regardless of how this election ends. I may or may not become your next MP, but it's an idea that stands on its own, with or without me. And I would consider anyone to look into direct democracy, investigate it, and see if you think it's worth a try. I think the top-down model, which we've seen for a century and more in this country, isn't working out so well. Maybe it's time to try something new. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Ryan, we'll move to you.
All right. Before I forget, the dairy cartel issue isn't saying that dairy farmers are terrible people. It's saying that the issues of supply management are making it so that they have a massive amount of control on the dairy market, and they make a lot of money on it, and it takes away opportunity for other people to be involved in the market on smaller levels. Anyways, regarding the question, I'm not sure who asked the question, but thank you for the question. I think it's a valuable question to be considering, and it was kind of interesting. I had a town hall yesterday where I spoke to a farmer about, he actually brought it up with me regarding the fact that the Liberal government had promised them millions and millions of dollars to help them during this season. and they never saw a dime of it. I don't know where it all went to exactly, but I would say that that was a good idea, maybe one of the only good ideas the Liberal Party had, but they did not follow through on it. And our party would certainly stand by our word. It's a party based on principle and not wavering pressures from different sides. And we would certainly stand by our word. The other issue that was brought up is that Phil mentioned, which was I appreciated, and I think probably Bob and Dave will probably be saying the same thing, that pipelines are a significant answer to the use of rail. We use the rail for shipping our petroleum products, and there's a more efficient way. And people say, well, we're going to have bursts in the pipelines. I've been on those pipelines and I've seen the safety procedures that honestly seem a little bit overkill, but I understand the value of making sure that those lines are built with integrity so that we don't have leakage in the ground. And I think a large part of the answer to this problem is certainly putting the pipeline through. So that would be where our party stands on that.
Thanks, Phil. David?
Thanks, Bev, and I appreciate the question as well. Farmers and agriculture are a major revenue source for Canada, and they are of the utmost importance to carry food and goods to the world. We would support farmers first off by repealing the carbon tax. It's very detrimental to them. And I know there was a push to give them an exemption, but that exemption did not make it through the House in time. And we would be repealing the carbon tax. That's a major priority. It'll help the farmers. It'll help everybody. The second part of that, repeal Bill C-69, which is the No Pipelines Act. That is very detrimental as well, and freeing up rail for use in agriculture would be a top priority, but more so getting pipelines in the ground. It's the safest way to move our energy, oil and gas, and we've got a great track record in it. So those would be major priorities. We would also remove the trade barriers, interprovincial trade barriers, and support the twinning of rail or the twinning of the Trans-Canada Highway, and provide avenues for energy corridors throughout the provinces, and interprovincial trade would be eliminated there, or would be a priority for us. So yeah, between twinning of rail, the road and energy corridors, removing the trade barriers, major priorities, repealing C-69, no carbon tax. Our farmers are incredibly important to us, and we have to look after them. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Catherine?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you again for the question. It's very comprehensive. My background in agriculture started 15 years ago. I've been part of the local Farmers Institute, and the Farmers Institute just celebrated 100 years a couple of years ago. In this area and in British Columbia, we are the least and less amount of time settled across Canada. So in 100 years ago, there were people coming here with oxen and horse and wagon and grub hose and turning the land over. And the Farmers Institute started because they were the ones that were actually feeding those that were coming behind them to do gold panning and exploration, and putting in the railway as time went by, and logging. And so now, as the president of Farmers Institute, I'm recognizing that across Canada, our farmers are aging out. The average age of the common farmer across Canada is 70 years old. And the only reason I became president is because our president since passed away this year, and it was him and his mother that both kept the Farmers Institute going. I want to mention that the question really helps us understand what is a priority. Feeding ourselves is a priority. That is how we maintain our health. That's how we stay away from the healthcare system and not be reliant on it, making sure that the healthiest food is on our plate. And think about, where you had your breakfast or how you access that food, or when you have a busy life as an MP, how do you access your food? I'm going to go through some points that the Green Party offers and some of the great statistics that we really need to think about. And as far as the rail cars go and oil and gas having precedence, we really have to keep food as a priority and making sure that it's front and center at all times for those reasons, for our health and wellness. The agriculture and food sector is an engine, a very large engine of the Canadian economy. The system employs more than 2 million people in Canada as a comparison to the oil and gas sector, which employs 500,000. It is vital to the economic viability and social fabric of rural communities, key to ensuring a safe and secure food supply, and essential to the health of the environment and ecosystem services. In Prince George, when we had fires 2 years ago, we saw empty shelves because we were housing people from Williams Lake and Quesnel and various other communities. This year and last year, we started to see food shelves go empty because of COVID. Supply chains were starting to waver. We're starting to see fires in California impacting the food that arrives on our shelving. This year, they're stating that prices will start to rise because food is becoming more scarce in those areas that we rely on. Agriculture and food systems are highly vulnerable to environmental and economic risks. Because of this, they receive a significant policy support from the government in the form of subsidies and other transfers. Support of the agriculture sector in Canada totals over $7 billion. And is a powerful tool that can tip the scale and determine which food systems prosper and which decline. Unfortunately, in Canada, federal government policies have contributed to the growing consolidation of agriculture at all levels, including the radical decrease in farm numbers and a shift from family-owned mixed farms and local processing to industrial farming systems. Meeting climate targets, there's still a long way to go in reducing the system's net emissions. This is a huge piece that agriculture and GHGs are significant. So with estimates ranging between 8 and 12% of Canada's total emissions, nitrogen fertilizer synthesis, fossil fuel use, and livestock enteric fermentation are the main sources of these emissions. Agriculture GHG emissions have grown significantly since the 90s, driven by growth of fertilizer use, crops and intensive livestock operations, contributing to Canada's lack of success in achieving its emissions reduction targets. These systems are supported by high levels of inputs of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, pharmaceuticals, GMOs, seeds, large globalized processing, marketing, and distribution. Transnational corporations have benefited directly from taxpayer-funded policies and programs and now control a large share of our food supply, and that is how it is produced. I could go on about the industrial agriculture, but it's a huge study in itself. I work in the community of Prince George, and I've been working in local agriculture. I work with an organization called Local Food Prince George. We've been begging our city to actually create a local food policy so that we can grow more food in our area. We take Holland, a very, very small country. It's one of the largest food producers, and it's a large food producer because its government decided that that was an important thing. It's not what's happening in Canada. We're aiming as a local food organization to ask that our government support local food production and help people understand that this is one way to increase and diversify an economy.
Are you finished, Catherine? Was that, or did we lose you?
I'm
Oh.
not finished. I was just, sorry. So we need to restructure our $3 billion next policy framework. How much time do I have?
Well, you're a little over the 3 minutes now, so we should start wrapping up.
Yeah, I can wrap up with making sure that we're looking at regenerative agricultural practices, helping understand that the only way to continue on with farming is to invest in high soil quality and smaller farms. Thank you.
Thanks. And we'll move on to Bob.
Thanks, Bev. Yeah, I've fought for grain car access for our local farmers since I came and in 2011. When we had a majority, there was many rail access issues for our farmers. They were getting grain cars. We stepped up. I stepped up locally. We stepped up as a government to make sure that that changed, and it did. But on food security, I was former shadow minister for Northern Affairs, Northern Economic Development, and we saw a huge issue with food in the north. One thing that we've seen, again, just down the street from me, about a mile or so, or a couple miles, is our local test crop area, where they actually, there's a background noise. I don't know if that's somebody, anyway. Where there's local test crops that are tested, so we can grow different crops that normally are a challenge in the north because our growing season is so short. So we are going to fund that again and make sure that we are giving our northern farmers all the advantages possible. We will protect our food supply by implementing a food security strategy. Redirecting some federal agriculture research funding to partnering with private sector to develop methods to grow more crops in Canada, as I said, year-round in greenhouses too. Working with provinces, industry, and the CBSA to develop a national strategy to deal with the possible outbreak of African swine fever. Reforming business risk management programs, particularly Agri-Invest and Agri-Recovery. Bringing agriculture stakeholders together for a summit-like meeting with the Minister of Agriculture to develop a way forward on insurance programs like agri-stability. And I'll go back to when I was on Ag Committee. Jerry Ritz was an excellent minister. We got a lot done. He was a minister that took charge and made sure our farmers were well represented. And one of those ways we do that is protecting the family farm. We've seen this current Liberal government where it actually is sometimes more expensive to sell to a family member, and it shouldn't be. We will ensure that sale of a family farm to a family member is not taxed at a higher rate than the sale to a stranger. We will ensure our farm safety net programs are predictable, bankable, and manageable. And just on pipelines, we completely support repealing C-69. We think we should be shipping our products through pipelines, and it would, again, provide more access to those grain cars and rail space to our farmers. So thank you.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Okay, we'll move into closing statements, and we'll start with David.
Thank you, Bev. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of the people in Northeastern BC, especially here in Fort Nelson. I am here in Fort Nelson today, showing support for the local community and talking to many people that I haven't had a chance to see in quite a while. Fort Nelson has had a huge impact on my career over the years. We've been very fortunate to have offices here, and I've hired a lot of people here and maintained a great relationship with an awful lot of people here. It's sad to see what is happening to our industries up here in terms of wood production, in oil and gas production, the major employment opportunities that are here. We need to get some leverage going in the West, and we need to have a voice in the West that promotes our resources and gets this community back up and running. We've got tremendous opportunities if we can get pipelines to the coast, if we can get rid of the tanker ban, if we can do some of those things, and there are huge markets out there available for us. So we need to work really hard on that. And in order to do that, I think Western Canada needs to be united. Maverick Party aims to do that. We'll put Manitoba, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC together to have a stronger voice in Parliament, and that would give us the leverage that we need to make revenue and have some control and autonomy over our resources and how things go. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be in Fort Nelson and working with the people here. Just a wonderful community, and I'll fight and do everything I can to get it back up and running, and just continue our chance at prosperity here. Thank you.
Thanks, David. We will go with Catherine next.
Thank you. And thank you to Fort Nelson and yourself for hosting us. It's a wonderful opportunity to reach out when we can't always make the miles. As a single parent of 6 children, I see the future of my children through their eyes. It's not looking promising in regards to the climate changing effects upon the environment that sustains our lives. The Canadian government is not willing to take any of the necessary steps to acknowledge this immediate crisis. It is business as usual. There's no time left to waste on empty political promises and resource extraction methods and industrial activities that exacerbate this issue. I'm offering my time, integrity, and commitment on behalf of the Green Party of Canada to bring forth tangible solutions that address climate change impacts now, not later. My experience in environmental health, agriculture, community development, mental wellness, and listening to the most vulnerable, listening to the voices of those not willing to speak for themselves. We have to recognize a chain is as strong as its weakest links. Society can only be successful as its least successful or powerful person. The success of the entire group depends on the success of each individual member of the group. If one person fails, the whole group fails. We have to be collaborative. We have to act in everyone's best interest and the best interest of the environment that we live within and the flora and fauna that we share this environment with. Thank you.
Thank you. I lost my place. Phil. Phil, you're still muted.
Hello.
There you go.
I clicked it and it ignored me. That's tech for you. Very simply, I am your Prince George Peace River Northern Rockies candidate for the CFF, Canadian Fourth Front. There are 4 major political parties in Canada in federal politics. The name implies that we would like to establish as the 4th major party in Canada, and that the concept of direct democracy would appeal. I hope I've been able to convey that concept effectively to all. I would like to point out the farmers have 6 months of winter here. They need to either buy hay or grow their own hay. All of this requires heavy equipment with powerful diesel engines. The carbon tax puts their energy costs up so high that some risk bankruptcy for that reason alone. Without gas and oil, all farming, food production, cattle production will come to a screeching halt. And the end result of that would not be good. So I think we have to acknowledge that if Canada ceased all industry that has emissions, that would make the difference of 1% in the world sphere. Do we really need to sacrifice all of our industry when Canada has the highest protection standards for the environment of any country in the world? So much so that the red tape alone causes to stop interests in any level of industry, any type of industry in Canada. I submit to you that all Canadians need to come together and have a vote that counts on all these issues. And I subject that if a vote was made today on carbon tax, it would be flatly put out to pasture as it should be. It never should have come into play in the first place. It was a UN directive based upon a fraud, and it is just a cash grab. That's all it is. That's all it will ever be. And I don't need anybody telling me which green products are acceptable to buy. If you agree with some of the things I'm saying, if you agree with none of the things I'm saying, direct democracy can work for Canadians to get to the democratic end of what is right for Canadians and Canada. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. We'll go to Bob.
Thanks again, Bev. Yeah, when I think of Fort Nelson and all the trips I've made up there, it really hit me the one time going by that Northern Rocky sign that it wasn't recognized previously. So it's one little thing, getting that added to our riding name. I think it gives the Northern Rockies and Fort Nelson its due recognition. I will say, a lot of things that we heard about and the problems in Ottawa all relate to this current prime minister. And especially as it relates to Fort Nelson, whether it's natural gas or whether it's forestry or agriculture, all the problems in those sectors all relate to the current person sitting at the prime minister's desk. And the only way to change that prime minister is to vote Conservative. We have a positive plan for our country. We have a hopeful plan for Fort Nelson. We want to get natural gas to the world. A great way to reduce emissions and do something good for our environment is to get Fort Nelson natural gas to places in Asia and elsewhere in the world. And that's something that we all know is that hopeful promise in Fort Nelson. We've all seen it. We've all seen the potential. I'll take you back to 2011 to 2015 when we were in government. Things were going very well in Fort Nelson. And we want to get that happening again. We want to get our economy back where it should be as a Canadian economy. We see other natural resource economies around the world flourishing. And why isn't Canada's? It's a great question. It's because the current prime minister is doing his level best to get in the way of natural resource development, or as in forestry, simply doing nothing. We want to secure our future by recovering the 1 million jobs lost during the pandemic in 1 year. We want to secure accountability by enacting a new anti-corruption law to clean up the mess in Ottawa. We want to secure mental health through our Canada Mental Health Action Plan. We want to secure the country by creating a strategic stockpile of essential products and building the capacity to manufacture vaccines at home. And lastly, we want to secure our economy by balancing the budget over the next decade. The reality is the real only way to make change is to defeat Trudeau. And the real only way to defeat Trudeau is to vote Conservative. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. And Ryan.
Okay, thanks, Bev. I'd like to reiterate my concern for the current situation that we're dealing with in this country. And it is the exact reason that I chose to run for this party, because it is literally the only party that will step in and put their foot down on these issues that are dividing the country. In this province specifically, we're having a very authoritarian, seemingly dictator in power, and he is pushing through, along with health authorities, which I'm not actually sure when we got health authorities over health services, but I'm kind of tired of health authorities at this point. Anyways, we're having, there's 120,000 businesses now that are united against enforcing a vaccine passport, and the province is telling them, we will shut you down. These people mean business, and I don't mean that in a pun sort of way. They genuinely will not back down. And I see these people as heroes in our time that are willing to say, this is not okay. We will not discriminate against somebody based on the fact that they would not take a vaccine that is, I will reiterate this as well, is still experimental. And they're saying it's effective, but they're also saying, well, actually now it was started with every 9 months you might need a booster. Then it was 6 months. Now they're saying 5 months. They are lying, and they are, and at the same time telling people you need to take this or there's going to be consequences. And I think if we don't deal with this present issue, it doesn't matter. You think we're going to fix our economy when 110,000 businesses go under, and when people are losing their jobs because they're not willing to take something that they shouldn't have to take. And there are legal, many of these cases are losing in court because it's not even legal for the government to push this down. I know this is a provincial issue, but our party believes it's a federal matter to step in, because this is against our Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And I would say there is only one choice in this election that's going to bring to an end this tyranny and this massive government abuse of power. And I want to say again to those businesses that are willing to step up, you are heroes in our time.
Thanks, Ryan. So that concludes today. I will put some work in to get this up this afternoon. I'm just gonna want to take a minute to thank you again for taking the time to do this on your Saturday. And I want to congratulate all of you for stepping forward and putting your candidacy and running in this election. I truly admire that because I think sometimes it's a very unforgiving job. So I admire your dedication.
Thanks, Bev. Thanks for doing this and all the time you put behind it. We appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Have a great one.